survival in our heart. Join us on the journey, through darkness we'll bring light. Rural Report is here, guiding us through the night.
Hello again, and welcome back everybody to another edition of the Rural Report. I am your Rural 2IC, and it is that time again, ladies and gentlemen, for another Rural Talk, aka the ugly truth about SHTF. Now, this one is going to be slightly different. We're going to go into a little different direction, if you will. And for anybody that's new here, welcome. Thank you for stopping by and spending a little bit of time with us here. For the rest of you, you know what this is. This is my podcast ish style to where it is completely unscripted. Everything just comes straight up. I have a topic in mind and off we go. So, when we start talking about SHTF, this is going to be kind of that uncomfortable, a little bit of the unsexy talk, right? The stuff that a lot of people don't really like to talk about because it's not mainstream. It's not going to get you a lot of clicks and attention, but it doesn't mean it's not important. Now, when SHTF happens, you want to make sure that if you are going to do any sort of a bug out, any sort of traveling, any sort of anything along those lines, that you're going to be outside, you're going to be in the elements to where you're going from point A to point B. Maybe you're going to go gather supplies. Maybe you're going from your house to your bug out location. Maybe you're trying to get from work to home. Maybe you're trying to get to grandma and grandpa's, or maybe your grandchildren, children, anything along those lines, that you're going to be traveling during SHTF. That's going to be really difficult in and amongst itself. But there's a lot of things that, if you're seasoned, they're fundamentals. If you don't know, then you end up as a statistic. And what do I mean by that? Well, first of all, let's say that you're traveling. When we start talking about this, you have to remember that technically there's no right or wrong when we're discussing any of this, because you can have it to where you go, all right, during SHTF, stay off the major highways. Okay, most of us are going to agree that's probably a good idea, but the thing is it's not 100% where it's wrong. There may be places to where a lot of people have the same mentality of stay off the major highways, and it's passable. You can do it. It's probably not a good idea, but it can be done. In other places, no, you should stay off the main highway. And I think it's going to be where you are. If you're on the East Coast and close to bigger cities, yeah, probably staying off the highway is going to be, probably the really good idea. If you're out west, or somewhere kind of Midwest ish, it may be passable for a period of time, or maybe passable for a long time. But one, it's going to be a good idea to stay away from crowded areas. It's going to be a good idea to stay away from populated areas. And it's going to be on your mode of transportation, how you're going to travel, things like that, the time of day you're going to travel, how far you've got to travel, the weather. There's a lot that goes into this, and we're going to try and break some of it down. So, first of all, let's go by, maybe distance. Obviously, if you're going to go far, you're not trying to get a couple of miles. You're going to want a mode of transportation that will make it to where it's easier for you. So most people are going to try and take some sort of a vehicle. Uh, that gets into a bunch of different things. So it's going to be, do you already have things packed in your vehicle? I know you can't pack everything, but there are people out there that they have a specific bug out vehicle, and good on them, right? But not all of us have that luxury. So do you have at least some things already packed? Because probably SHTF time is going to be of the essence. The quicker you can draw your red line, that the red flag goes up of I need to get out of here, the less amount of time to pack your stuff and get going is, it's going to be in your favor the faster you can do it. Because while you're heading out and getting on the road and getting some miles under you, everybody else is still trying to pack a bag or get bags into their vehicle. So having some things in your vehicle, let's just say for the average person, you have a 8, 10-year-old car, and that is your only means of transportation. You can still put a travel bag in your car. It's probably a good idea to have a car bag. And we're not saying it's a full on bug out bag or a rucksack or anything along those lines, although it's not a bad idea. But to just have that emergency bag, a change of clothes, a change of socks, underwear, things like that, because you can have a personal SHTF. Let's say that it is 2 o'clock in the morning and you get that phone call that there's been an accident and you need to get to the hospital immediately. At 2 o'clock in the morning, do you want to be stumbling around trying to find things? Or do you just want to get to the hospital for your friend, loved one, family member, whoever it is? And, if you got to stay there for a small expended period of time, you already have stuff. Keep a little bit of, maybe $20 in ones and things like that in there. So that way you've got some options for food or anything along those lines. Maybe keep some snacks, bottle or two of water. Have it to where if anything goes on, your bag's there for an emergency. We don't have to be end of the world. You can have an emergency kit in the back of your car, and you can have multiple ones depending on what it is. You can have a personal one, what we just talked about. Everybody should have a car emergency kit, things like jumper cables, duct tape, zip ties, things like that. But you should have your bug out bag already packed. It should be pretty close in proximity of a door. So that way, if you're sitting at home in the recliner watching football, or you're in the kitchen making dinner, sitting down at the table playing a board game with the family, and all of a sudden you get that alarm bell that's, hey, red line's been crossed, we got to go. You literally within seconds can grab your stuff and get out while everybody's still trying to process what's going on, make decisions. You've prepared for this. You already drew your red line in the sand. You already know what your indicators are. You know what to do when those things happen. Everything's set up and strategically placed. Your bags are packed. You know the drill. It's like practicing a fire drill. And you just automatically just go into motion. Everybody grabs their stuff, everybody knows what to do, everybody heads to the car, everybody uh you know throws their bag in certain places and this and that, and this, right where to head. When you pull out of the driveway, you know that you got to head north, and turn at the end of the street. Like it's all set. You're not sitting here freaking out like everybody else. That's pretty much a lot of the reason on trying to do a lot of this pre pairing, right? You're trying to get ready before the event happens, because one of the biggest mistakes of people that don't prepare is that when that happens, people's reactionary, uh, the things that they do to react, are usually poor decision making. Preparing gives you a much better chance. Now, granted, it's not a guarantee. That's one of probably the absolute biggest threats to new, medium, and then even people that's been doing it for a long time. Probably one of the absolute biggest mistakes is having that false sense of security. I prepare so it guarantees me that I'll survive. I'm trained medically, so that guarantees that if something, some medical urgency happens, that I'll spring into action and I'll save the day. Or I go to the range twice a week for the last whatever year. It There's no guarantee. It gives you a much better percentage of having a positive outcome, but there's no 100% guarantee. And the more people accept that and the more humble you become, it's okay to be self confident, but arrogance is a very, very poor thing in an SHTF. Ego is an enemy. Do not walk around with a big ego. Okay, so jumping back. Okay, so you something happened. You guys threw everything in the car. You're in the car. You're heading down. Whatever. Car breaks down. You run out of gas. Uh, roads impassable. You gotta go by foot. Do you have everything that you need to traverse the terrain on foot? Do you have proper footwear? Do you have the proper clothing? Do you have a change of clothing that if, depending on the time of the year, that the temperature fluctuates? It's hot during the day, but it's cold at night. And a really good example of that, ironically, is here in Ohio, the temperature here in the next day or so, it's going to be in the low to mid 80s during the day. And then it's going to drop to the low 40s, maybe even upper 30s at night. That's a huge temperature swing. Are you prepared for that if that is where you live and places like that? Now, some of you live in different areas where you don't have that much of a worry, but there's a few of you that, have that same sort of worry, if you will. So as you walk, do you have anything that's going to help you? Do you have a paper map? Do you have a compass? Are you able to orient yourself that you know the direction? Can you look up at the sun and know how to orient yourself based on where the sun is, based on where the moon is? Can you go through and figure out how to navigate? That's a lost art. There's a bunch of people that don't know when it comes to like highways and things like that, which direction they go based on the route number. It's one of those things that uh, people, they just see 71 or 315 or anything like that, and they're just numbers. But there's method to the madness on those. And to come across one of those signs, if you don't have a paper map, you can orient yourself pretty decently off of your surroundings and to have a generalized clue. You should know the area and where you're at. You should know the area of where you're heading, and then you should have a decent idea of what's in between. So you know that if you live in the town of red and you're going to the town of blue, and the town of purple is kind of in an opposite direction, and all of a sudden you start seeing signs of purple ahead 5 miles, something went wrong and you need to turn around. Okay, there's a lot of people that won't realize that and put two and two together, and they'll just keep walking. So make sure that you're watching your surroundings. Make sure that you are familiar with how things are around you, what's around you, the different places and things like that. Uh, Being able to identify landmarks. There's a lot of people that they can read a paper map, but they can't read a topographical map. And being able to read a map legend and use the compass, so that way they can do distance. There's people that don't do pace counting, so that way they can judge how far they're walking and keep a steady pace. Uh, you know, Carrying things that are very, very heavy might slow you down. Getting tired is going to slow you down. Uh, Difficult terrain is going to slow you down. And if you think, well, I go to the local park and I time myself and I can do a mile in whatever, 9 minutes. Well, if you have that mentality, but you never did it while walking uphill, while it's getting dark with 40 pounds on your back, your distance is going to be way off and your timing is going to be way off. And then you can skew a whole bunch of things. It can get depressing because you thought you would be there by now and you're technically probably a distance off. So plan for things like that. But let's say that you have to stay the night somewhere. Do you know how to pick out a campsite? And it's going to be one of those, it's going to depend on where you are, but you're going to want to be off the beaten path. You're not going to want company. So you're going to have to, wherever you're walking, you're going to have to go a little distance off. But do you know how to look up and make sure you don't have a widowmaker hanging above your head? There's a lot of people that they think that you need to have really, really thick cover above you. And while, yes, that can be beneficial for people that don't know what a dead limb looks like or anything along those lines, uh, it could spell disaster while you're asleep. You know, it's a lot of common sense that people overlook. Is there a hornet's nest, above you or close by? When you try and pick out a campsite, it is looking for a good spot and then assessing that spot. So stop, look, listen, everything. Make sure that you are on a decent terrain that if it starts raining in the middle of the night, that you're not going to wake up, in a flood or a flash flood. Making sure that there's no dead trees or anything that if you start getting windy or anything along those lines, that you're not going to have a tree tip over or something on you. Then making sure that if possible, have a water source close, but again, not too close because you don't want the river or pond or anything like that to swell if there's rain. There's a whole bunch of things that can speak for disaster. Is there rocks above you that could slide down or fall? Uh, when it comes to fire, do you know how to make a fire? Hopefully everybody uh, make sure you pack, Bic lighter or matches or something like that. Give yourself the best possible chance that there is and the easiest way. You don't want to be freaking out while there's chaos going on around you, and you are trying to resort to the most primitive rubbing two sticks together. Uh, you know, Prepare for it. Prepare for it now. Try and give yourself the best odds that you possibly can and make it to where you give yourself the easiest way because fire goes a long way, but are you safe about it? Did you clear the ground around you? Did you build a firewall to be able to utilize the warmth in a cool night? Do you have a stone circle, or did you bury your fire, dig down a little bit so that way it's hidden? Did you use the right materials so you're not producing a lot of smoke? There's a lot goes into a lot of this that I think that people often overlook, and they think that they can just tromp off into the woods and they'll be fine. Like their caveman primitive side will just kick in, and they'll flourish, and yet the most wilderness that people have ever seen is the park that's maybe half of an acre downtown. For them, that's wilderness. But when people go through and let's say that they picked a decent spot, let's say that they were able to start a fire and things like that. Do you have shelter? There's a lot of people that they don't have enough room for a tent, and so they think that they can just sleep out under the stars. Okay, depending on where you live, again, depends on the situation. But you're going to have a lot of insects at night. You still stand the possibility of wind and rain and snow. Uh, there's a lot of creepy crawlies and different other things. So having a shelter is a pretty good idea, even if it's primitive. You know, Usually, and I hate saying this because in my head I know what it is, but there's a lot of people that fight me on it. Something's better than nothing. So if you had a roll of plastic and absolutely nothing, I will take the roll of plastic because I know I can turn that into some sort of primitive shelter that'll help. Um, but a lot of it goes again on your skill level. The more skill that you have, the more training that you have, the less that you need to carry. I don't have to carry a big, bulky, heavy tent if I know how to make a shelter. I don't have to carry a whole bunch of fire starting supplies if I can carry something that I am confident in and may fit into, some tiny little pouch or dangle off my belt or something like that. There's a lot that you can do with the more skill that you have. So now in that relative peacetime, make sure that you are training, make sure that you're doing everything that you can because the people that go through, and I know I'm way off topic and all over the place. The people that come to me for advice and they tell me that it's getting very difficult to prepare because finances, and I get it. Okay, times are tough, but they come to me and they say, I can't financially afford, this and this and this and this, and I need it. I have to have it. And I go, no, you don't. You want it because it makes life easier, and I understand it, but you don't have to have that. You can, for free to very low cost, take training and learn how to do what that piece of gear that you want to buy so desperately. You could learn to live without it. You can learn how to form and fashion that same exact tool. A hammer would be excellent thing to have, but I don't want to carry around a big bulky hammer. But could I make one? Could I make some sort of tool that I can use as a hammer? Yes, I pretty confident I can. Um, there's a lot of different things like that. Uh, if you can buy a piece of gear that does multiple roles, so that way you're carrying one item that does three, five, eight different things instead of having all those things in your pack. You now created a bunch more space. You created a way that you can carry using a lot less weight. And instead of digging around in all these items trying to find one particular thing for one particular task, you now have it that if this and this, you can reach for one singular item. So, be careful on what you buy. Get as much training as you possibly can because it's going to help you in the long run. Never ever, and we go right back to this, that false sense of security, never make it to where your life depends on an item, because that item can break, get stolen, go bad. You could lose it. It could reach its end of its life cycle. There's a whole bunch of reasons why this up here is your biggest investment. There's so many people that want to run off and spend all sorts of money going into massive amounts of debt, and they think that they can buy their way to survival during an SHTF situation, when instead you can save that money and put it all up here. And then that way, if the thing comes that you have half of a second and you have to run, all of it comes with you. You didn't forget it at the campsite. You didn't lose it over here when you fell down. Uh, it didn't get stolen while you were away from fishing. It's all right here. It's all with you. So invest in yourself. That is the single best advice that I could ever give anybody that is a new prepper or anything along those lines. Study, train, learn. And then the next step is get out there and do. Practice it. Put it into action. Trust me, it's going to go a long way. So okay, let's try and get back on topic and wrap this all up. So when it comes to traveling, there's a lot of things that we have touched on in this that if you're experienced, probably if you're experienced, you probably made it a couple of minutes into this and turned it off because you go, I already know about all this. One of the biggest things that I really like to push is go back to fundamentals. No matter what your skill level as a prepper, make sure that 3 months, 6 months, whatever, put a time down, and then for a whole week, go back to the basics. The basics work, they're proven. That's why whenever you learn something new, you start out with the basics and then you build off of that. But the thing that is so important is that that is your foundation. And if you are building a building or a structure or whatever, and you're getting up here and you're getting really high and elevated, if that foundation is not strong, it's all for nothing. Go back and practice the absolute basics. Master that over and over and over again. I cannot stress that enough. There's so many people that they'll go out and they will learn something new, and then they'll build off of it and build off of it and build off of it, and then they meet somebody that is new and they can't remember the basics. They're over here doing calculus and trigonometry, and then a 5 year old goes, "What's 1 plus 1?" And they have to stop and think about it. I know that's an extreme, example, but you get the idea. So make sure that you practice things like that. Make sure you go back. The fundamentals, the basics, the foundation, it's extremely important. Think about everything as you go through. When we talk about traveling and anything along those lines, be aware. Self-awareness and your area of operation is really, really important. Look around, stop, listen. Okay, everything's trying to tell you something. Listen for water, listen for animals, listen to the wind, look around, see the dangers or see the benefits. Am I in a good spot? Am I heading in the right direction? Is this a bad idea? Should I stop? Should I turn around? Make sure that you are just not running headstrong into a very bad situation. It can be extremely dangerous. So, start thinking about anything along these lines when it comes to travel, we talk about setting up like a base camp or even just setting up for the night. There's a lot of things that I think a lot of people think that they know just because they saw it in some sort of movie or they saw it on some prepping show and they're like, that's a really good idea, I'm going to remember that. Are you going to remember it? Do you even know how to do it? Have you practiced it? And I'm not trying to put anybody down. I'm trying to help you. If you think it's a good idea, wonderful. Go try it. Does it work for you? Okay. It may not work for you. It may not work for your situation. Do you really know how to do it? Did it just look easy, but now that you're trying to do it, it's actually incredibly difficult? It probably looked easy because they've done it 100 times, or it could be fake. Okay, we live in that generation of all sorts of AI nonsense and video editing and things like that. There's a lot of things to prepare for, guys, and each one of them, whether it's absolutely going to happen versus very, very slim. I know I recently had somebody ask me about the power grid, and I tell you, when it comes to things like this, you are going to have it to where it's going to be like a light switch. It's going to be instantaneous, or it could be. Okay, let's put it that way. It could be instantaneous, and you can have it to where 1 minute everything's good, and the next minute it's not. And in that minute it's not, is it down for a minute? Is it down for the weekend? Is it down for a month, a year, anything along those lines? Um, just make sure you take that stuff serious. What is your plan for all that? What is your plan for no power? Uh, they've already put out those statistics that if the event of a power grid failure in the United States that lasts 365 days, that it would take out an extremely high. I think they said something like, 80% or something, 70, 80, 90% of the American population. Super high number. Don't be part of that statistic. Do what you can now to prolong and give yourself a chance. Okay. So that's what I've got for you. So I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you got a little bit of substance out of it. And, do all the fun YouTube things. Hit the like, subscribe, hit the bell for notification. We're going to continue to put these out because a lot of you seem to like it, and I appreciate that. So, with that, I hope you guys have an amazing day. I hope you have a blessed day. Stay tuned because there's definitely more information to come. And with that, I'm going to remind you, remain united because we're all prepping in this together.